So, for the last part that I'm going to be talking about in my presentation is the Chinese and the migration that was forced to build the transcontinental railroad. The Chinese were a big part of building the railroad, the transcontinental railroad, and it was unfair the way they were being treated throughout their time there in the United States and building the railroad. They were just being taken advantage of and being treated unfairly, which many people nowadays still are taking advantage of if they come from a different country and don't know how to speak the language, which is unfair, but a sad reality. At the time of the railroad being built, over thousands of Chinese workers came to the United States to build the railroad. The Union Pacific Railroad line greatly took advantage of the Chinese workers, and it was really unfair. They were giving harder requirements of the job. They were doing harder jobs than the white employees were doing, and it wasn't fair to them. Of course, the Chinese were treated badly, and they were being treated with racial slurs and being told things that they didn't deserve. The Chinese had already been here in California before the railroad, but they but that was during the gold rush. During the gold rush, they were of course trying to be successful and get money, just as many of Americans that had crossed the country earlier that time had been doing as well. The Chinese came from different parts of China, especially the more rural and poor parts. These Chinese immigrants wanted to find a better opportunity, as many do, and that was good for them. But until there was no more gold and there was lost hope, many of the Chinese workers decided to stay after the gold rush and look for other jobs which could help them support their families. Supporting their families was one of their main goals, as they had built families the throughout their stays in California, and did not want to go back to poverty in China, as they felt that in California they had more opportunities to survive and have a better life, just as many still do today. When the Chinese workers were being taken advantage of, just as it's normal to believe that when anyone's being taken advantage of, they eventually get tired of it. And it's understandable to get tired of this. So there were so much problems with the transcontinental railroad, and the Chinese are included in this. The Chinese were so greatly taken advantage of. I know I'm being repetitive in this, but it's just a sad story in the way that they got taken advantage of. So eventually, and the after a while, in 1866 of June, the Chinese decided to put their tools down and start protesting, as it was understandable. The strike, which took place in this short amount of time, lasted a total of 8 days, and it was something that the Chinese were fighting for, to get better rights and equal rights with the white. As like I said, they were being taken advantage of, and it was not fair for them. And it's understandable that they would eventually get tired of it. Eventually, the strike was ended in a very upsetting way, in my opinion. It ended after a Central Pacific director, Charles Crocker, choked off food, supplies, and transportation to 1,000 Chinese laborers who lived in camps where they worked, which was so unfair for them, and it's understandable that they needed to go back to work, or else they were just gonna give up on hope and end up going back to China or passing away sadly. The situation with the Chinese was originally actually started as an experiment, which was to see if they're capable of doing the jobs of white men, and that was to build the transcontinental railroad. And of course, as we saw throughout this whole progress of the Chinese suffering and overcoming the problems that they faced, they were able to do the job accordingly, although taking so much racial slurs, and discrimination against them. They were more than capable of accomplishing the jobs that were required from them. To conclude with the Chinese were great workers that were being taken advantage of, just as many are nowadays, and it resonates to the idea of the octopus in the way that in the octopus many people were being taken advantage of, if not working with the railroad company, but also with the land, and it all comes into combination with the land, the taking being taken advantage of. I feel like the two main points of the octopus and just in general Manifest Destiny and the Transcontinental Railroad all include the government's control on us as people and how we had to stand up for what we believe in, although it might be hard and we might think it's not possible.